Hello and welcome again to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. I am your host Dave, and with me always is the lovely Laura. And tonight, we're going to discuss something gruesome and something horrible. We may laugh, we may make some jokes, we use gallows humor here. It's not for the faint of heart, you may be offended. And if you're a delicate boy that plays the drums in an alt-rock band from Chicago, you will be offended. And you probably should listen to something else, something that decent folks listen to. I wouldn't know, because I'm not listening to it. And so, without further ado, let's proceed. Hey, happy Halloween and welcome to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. As always, we are on a slightly delayed schedule for reasons known only to us. Don't think too hard about it. The show's still free. You're probably not that good of a person because you're listening to this and enjoying it. Deep down, you know this is wrong on a lot of levels. But, as I said, happy Halloween. Hey, Laura.
Hey.
The Queen of Halloween, the former Queen of Mean. Laura is here tonight, and we're going to do a quick, fun little episode about, a pillar of the community, a nice man, a misunderstood genius, Richard Ramirez. The Night Stalker.
He would have liked the way you said his name like that.
Night Stalker.
I think he really had an image. Image was important to him.
Yeah, and he was your typical Satan-worshipping fellow, right? Because
he was a devil worshiper, not a Satanist. I mean, look at this picture of him. He's wearing sunglasses in court. What an asshole.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
You heard it here. The worst thing about Richard Ramirez is he wore sunglasses in courts.
I mean...
Well,
okay. I mean... But seriously, he was, he was like the worst, but like of a type. Like the worst of he thought he was a badass, didn't he?
I'm so lost in a type. Like,
he
what
was,
what was
I
his
don't
type?
know, a creepy,
It's like a guy.
I'm scared, like he enjoyed being scary and intimidating people.
Are sunglasses that scary? I just feel like that was the 80s.
I don't know, just like, maybe, but...
Like, he'd pop his collar,
no,
wear sunglasses, and murder you in your bed.
No, one of his victims, one who lived, said that he smelled like wet leather, and I was like, yeah, I can see that. And you just, and he had terrible breath. That was what other victims said. That kind of takes down the whole I'm a badass, I worship the devil. It was like his breath fucking stank. Here he tried. I'm so sorry that he raped and tried to murder you. Can you tell us anything about him? Well, he had horrible halitosis. Seriously, that was what people said.
Did you know him? I mean, because I know you worship the devil too, right?
No, I do not worship the devil. The devil is a complete figment of everyone's imagination.
So you worship who then? Satan?
I don't worship anybody.
What church do you belong to?
I don't belong to any church.
Temple?
Dave, you know what? I don't belong to any... No. Organized religion is for suckers.
Anyways, back to the murders.
Plus, we don't talk about religion or politics in our podcast.
Why not? What's the difference?
It's implied. Anyway.
Okay, so...
I'll edit this one.
Nah, we're not. We're going to push out tomorrow. This is not getting edited.
Richard Ramirez liked to... Yeah, no, he was a real bad guy. He's
a bad man.
He was a very bad guy. He really enjoyed inflicting pain and suffering on people, and he was like, I feel like there's different kinds of killers. There's killers who get off on actually killing someone. There's killers who can... Oh, wait. Let me back up. You got your rapists who really like raping people. Then you got your rapists who then murder their victims after the fact, to get rid of witnesses. And then you have your rapists who murder their victims first because they have a weird, horrible sex thing where they can only have sex with dead bodies. And then you have Richard Ramirez, who just really loved raping. That was like his consistent crime. He raped every single one of his victims. He didn't kill them all. The killing was almost like an afterthought. Like some of them he tortured, some of them he killed. It wasn't like he tried to kill them all and failed. He just, I don't know, it was just like whatever struck his fancy at that particular time.
Do you think he thought of himself as a fancy boy when he was raping, or?
No, I think he thought of himself as like the devil incarnate and really liked scaring the shit out of people.
But you don't meet a lot of guys outside of like really bad movies that are self-proclaimed guys that love rape. In fact, most rapists don't think of themselves as rapists.
Yeah.
But they do hate women, which is a profound difference.
They pretty much, they do. Yeah.
Or they hate themselves, but need to dominate, that sort of thing.
I mean, Richard Ramirez was basically, he was really a rapist first, and then a serial killer second. He was a serial rapist, number one, really. I mean, I don't know, I think.
No, he was. And serial rapists are extremely rare in this capacity, where stranger rape, going on and on and on. And again, the distinction here with Richard Ramirez, he had a string of crimes that started in the mid-1980s, and he did not, as a rule, kill people or kill everybody that he came across. In fact, typically, he would leave one person alive, and...
Not sure he was that organized, actually.
No, I'm saying typically there'd be one person alive and one person dead if there was a pair. If there was a single person there, he would usually leave them alive, but brutalized and raped.
Well, sometimes. I mean, I don't think he had a real pattern like that. We're going to wait just 1 minute because the dog is, of course, choosing right now to eat.
It just feels like you're not that loud.
I'm like down low, maybe. You know what? I am. Here. Why don't you just turn this down this way? Now can you hear me talk about Richard Ramirez? That's better, Dave. Look. I just turned it down. This way. Like I literally tipped it down towards me.
Okay, good.
And now it's better. So just remember at about the 5-minute mark, we have to edit out the dog eating, okay?
Yeah, I'm just going to put this food.
Do you want to just pause it?
It's easier to not pause it.
Okay. Well, you know the drill. Our dog decides to allow to eat his food right when we're... So let me give you a little background. I'm just going to keep going because we don't have time to edit this. Sorry, everybody. It's not quality. It's not a quality podcast. It's free. We're only doing it randomly.
It's quality sometimes. We had a pretty fucked up month, and
we've had a crazy couple of months. Anyway, so like many serial killers, Richard Ramirez did have a couple of head injuries as a child. I'm always a little bit skeptical about that whole head injury serial killer because yes, a lot of serial killers did have head injuries, but they're things like they fell off their bike or something. And I don't know. I know some people who fell off their bikes and had concussions as children who are not serial killers. Do you know any, Dave?
I've had several head injuries,
yeah,
including
so
a major bike one. I lost a day and a half.
Yeah, but anyways, Ramirez got knocked unconscious by a swing at the park, which if you have children or are spending time with children, you'll know that's an extremely common park injury because, man, if I had a nickel for every time I saw a kid get knocked the fuck down by another kid swinging into them at the park, it's a bad one. But anyways, he was knocked unconscious, and after that, he had epileptic seizures, apparently.
That seems odd.
That seems like a serious head injury there. So anyways, he had a cousin that also was a huge influence on him. His cousin was a Green Beret. What is a Green Beret? I mean, I know it's some kind of special army guy.
Yeah, it's,
right?
Well, Green Beret is like a upper echelon army, like a SEAL or a Ranger.
Are you putting dishes away?
I am making drinks.
Oh, okay. Anyway, he had a cousin. His cousin Mike. So his cousin Mike was Green Beret in Vietnam, and he...
I believe it's pronounced Viet fucking Nam.
Viet fucking Nam. In Nam. And he was a real piece of shit, apparently, because he showed his 12-year-old cousin, Richie, Polaroid pictures of a bunch of Vietnamese women that he raped, including one picture where Mike Ramirez is posing with the severed head of a woman.
I'm back. Polaroids were fun. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about how poor little Richie Ramirez's creepy cousin Mike came back from Nam and showed his little cousin Polaroids of women that he'd raped and killed. And that had quite the impact on little Richie.
Just quick segue, does everybody in America have some kind of creepy cousin experience to some extent? Like, I mean, cousins are like a gateway drug to human personalities.
You know what? People are fucked up.
They are, but
they really are. Like, every family has a couple of people in it, at least one, where you're like, that boy ain't right.
But they're your first exposure to someone else in your, I mean, the society, I guess, the different ones in the world. But, I mean, I know I had a cousin who she was pretty normal, but like she
Killed a man just to watch him die?
no, but she was like explaining like how sex works to me when I was 4. And you said, if you want to later, we can do that. I'm like,
You are bullshitting that.
no. She was like 5. I was 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Creepy.
Well, looking back, I probably should have because it was a
Ew.
huge drought after that.
Was it like
Yeah.
like a, I don't know, 14-year drought for you?
I figured like, yes.
You were like, there'll be others.
I figured like, yeah, there's a lot of hot pussy in first grade. I'll wait till then. I'm not going to rush into something right now.
Gross. Okay, so Richard Ramirez, in addition to having a head injury as a child and having a creepy cousin who showed him like pictures of dead women and women he raped.
How do you know that he raped them? I mean, what does a raped woman look like in a Polaroid?
I think he was showing him pictures of women that he was like abusing. Like I think they were pretty explicit pictures.
It's
I don't know. Maybe they
this
were.
is my Canadian girlfriend.
No.
I didn't rape her. This is my Cambodian girlfriend. I totally raped her.
Maybe they were naked and in. I don't know. Maybe they were beaten up. I have no idea. So he also he started doing drugs at an early age. He had a father with a violent temper.
This could be Anthony Kiedis.
So he had kind of a fucked up childhood, as you know, many people do.
As was the style.
One of the things he would do is he would run away from home to get away from his fucked up family, and he would sometimes sleep in the cemetery nearby his home.
Holy shit. There has not been a good song about runaways since the 90s.
Well, they discourage runaways now, you know?
No, but remember there was that Runaway Train song by Soul
Runaway
Asylum?
train never coming
Bon
back.
Jovi had a song called She's a Little Runaway. Half the songs in the 50s were about running away.
Yeah.
Which, you know.
They really try to
car
discourage
crashes.
kids from running away these days.
Well, who's they?
I don't know. Adults,
What are they?
parents.
I think kids are just too comfortable these days. They got their Wi-Fi and phones and...
There's a lot of fear over human trafficking. Nobody wants their kids to be trafficked, so
Well, dumb people are afraid of that.
discourage running away.
What was running away encouraged, though?
I don't know. I think it just wasn't. I think people didn't worry as much if their kids went missing for a little while.
Well, there's a lot of songs about it. Whatever. I mean...
So not only did Richie Ramirez, he was called Richie as a child. I'll stop calling him. I'm not calling him Richie as a term of endearment. I'm just calling him Richie when talking about his childhood because that's what he was called in childhood. So his cousin Mike. Back to his cousin Mike. Mm-hmm. What is the dog doing? It's like suddenly just exploring every fucking crevice of the.
I don't know. We're sitting in the studio.
Anyways, so back to his cousin Mike, who was very, fucked up. He witnessed his cousin Mike shoot his wife in the head and kill her.
You don't see that every day.
No.
How'd that come up?
So, this was he's like a young teenager, and he was there when his cousin Mike got in an argument with his wife and shot her in the face.
And killed her?
Yes.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, and then Mike went to prison, as one does after one murders one's wife, generally. And
he was like, why didn't you rape her?
Richie became rather, sullen and withdrawn after that.
Yeah.
Which is,
Why, was he closer to the...
So, then after that, he moves in with one of his sisters, Ruth, and her husband, Roberto. And Roberto... I don't know why I said Roberto. Gringo. God damn it, Frodo. Lie the fuck down. Down. Lie down, buddy. You're a good boy. Lie down. So Roberto had an interesting habit. Would you like to guess what it was?
Cocaine?
Maybe, but that wasn't what I was thinking of.
Was he into
let's say he had a hobby, and it involved leaving the house at night.
Trains? Do you collect model trains?
Frodo, you are not playing with your loud fucking toy right now. Go lie down, or you're going to be outside. Down. You're not throwing your rubbery toy around the room. He's like, oh, but I am.
What was Roberto's secret habit? Model trains? Was he into...
Keeping Tom.
Oh.
And he took Richie along with him.
Okay, to be fair, to defend the Peeping Tom, because no one else will, there's no internet. I mean, you got a couple nudie magazines.
Okay, you take your young, your young brother-in-law with you to go peek into windows at night.
He probably knew he'd be into it. Sounds kind of fun.
Ew. Around that time, also, so he was. Let's see, he was when was he born? He was born in 60. This was 73 when he saw his cousin shoot his wife, so he was only 13. Jesus Christ. So he's like in his young teen years, okay? So he's sleeping in graveyards. He's peeping in windows with his brother-in-law. He's already witnessed a murder, and he starts to also get into drugs like acid and pot, and then he also starts getting interested in devil worship.
Again, it sounds a lot like Anthony Kiedis in Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people go down this road of a fucked up childhood, and they do not become serial rapists.
No, this is based like every character in Dazed and Confused.
Right,
Which was delightful.
And this is why nature versus nurture, it's just both. It's just got to be both. Having a fucked up childhood does not make you a serial killer. Having a normal childhood does not guarantee you won't be a serial killer. It's often both.
Sometimes God gives people the tools they need to succeed, whether it's as a doctor, a surgeon, or a psychopath.
And this is why there is no God.
There is a God, and he loves you, and he forgives you.
Oh, jeez. Okay, anyway. Oh,
you just found God?
No, I did not. Okay, actually, I was wrong I was just looking at his cousin who murdered his wife. He actually did not go to prison. He went to a mental hospital. So, in his formative teen sexual awakening years, he's seen pictures of women that his cousin raped and beheaded. He's seen domestic violence resulting in murder, and he's peeked in women's windows. All right? So, he starts to have, fantasies of rape. Right? So he's in high school. He starts working part-time at a local hotel, and he starts stealing the key to the rooms and going in and stealing stuff from the rooms while people are in there sleeping.
Like shampoo and...
I don't know. Stuff probably from the guests. But he gets fired after a guest returns to his room to find Richie trying to rape his wife. That'll get you fired, folks. Do not try to rape the hotel patrons. You will lose your job.
Yeah, some places.
So the guy beats the shit out of Richard Ramirez at the scene, but the couple did not return to testify against him, so the charges were dropped.
I love the 70s.
This was
all right, you get out of here. You stop that raping.
By the time he's in high school. This is high school. So he's... Oh, and that's the other thing. Was not just a serial rapist. Loved to rob people. Loved it. Had a real passion for it. And isn't that, wouldn't you say, on the scale of aggression, breaking into people's homes while they're there? I mean, that's pretty fucking psycho.
It is. Yeah.
To me, he's one of the scarier and more aggressive serial killers because, some of these guys, they would, pick up women and then, shoot them in their car. I mean, really? You're a fish in a barrel at that point. I mean, it's just not that... And plus I feel like if that's a little more avoidable, it's okay, do not get in a car with a stranger.
Yeah.
Avoidable. But you're sleeping in your home, Richard Ramirez, it's back like Richard Ramirez. It was like the Richard Speck thing. It's you're doing absolutely nothing wrong. This guy busts open a window and comes in your house, and that's scary.
He also loved rotisserie chicken too.
Did he?
Robbing, raping, rotisserie. The 3 R's he called them.
Well, Richie loves to rob people. That's what his family said about him. He
loves
robbing and raping.
And eating a big piece of chicken afterwards. That's what they caught him, I think, too. A trail of chicken bones.
They caught him really in an interesting way, but...
Go on.
Do you want to talk more about him? I'm just taking over the talking about it, but...
Well, no, I mean, I've always thought he was kind of interesting because he's incredibly good looking.
I wouldn't say he's incredibly good looking.
You would date him.
Ew. I would say he was kind of good looking in a bad boy kind of way, but then he had really kind of messed up teeth, which really...
Okay, well, he'd be big in Britain then, either way. I mean, whatever.
He had, you know what he had? He had great cheekbones. He
Yes.
did have great cheekbones. I'll give him that.
No, and just I don't know, the pure random savagery of his actions are something to be not admired, but
No, not admired at all.
he's true terror. I mean,
Yeah,
this is a
he's
great episode
terrifying.
because he didn't have a pattern. He didn't really stalk people. He would break into the houses with the purpose of raping whoever was
And
female in the bed,
And he was no. Go ahead. Sorry.
and he might leave you alive. He might leave you dead. He wanted you to be scared. He wanted to feel powerful,
Right.
and he got off on it in every sense of the word.
See, to me, he's way scarier than somebody like Jeffrey Dahmer, who would drug his victims and then like basically just kill them so he could have sex with their dead bodies, which is terrifying. But like the whole pain and suffering wasn't part of his. That's not what he was getting off on.
Well, I mean, I think Ramirez was all about the process.
He was definitely about the process.
He wanted people to suffer.
He did,
and he enjoyed it.
Yep.
And again, we're here to avoid people like him, and the best thing you can do is not be a woman, which is working out pretty well for most of us.
Well, for about half the population. Great.
Extra points for being white.
You wonder why, like, women go to the bathroom in groups and stuff, because we don't want to get raped and murdered.
I think it's because of pillow fights and sexual activity.
Oh, gee. Anyway, all that history was before the age of 22. And at 22, he was born in Texas, did I mention that part? So at 22, he leaves Texas, moves to California.
Oh, our second guy from Texas recently.
And he stayed in California for the duration of his life.
I wish everybody would stay in California.
So he was born in 1960. He started, his first murder was in 84. All right?
It's a great year. Ghostbusters.
Do you know his first murder was? It's a really bad one.
Why don't you tell me everything about it?
Well, it was a 9-year-old girl.
Ah, that's terrible.
I know. It makes it way less fun, doesn't it? You don't want to talk about murdered children. I hate talking about child murderers. Uh-oh, what happened? Anyway, where was I? Okay, so he's in San Francisco area. A 9-year-old girl, Mei Leung, was found murdered in a hotel basement. She'd been raped, beaten, stabbed to death, and she was found hanging from a pipe.
There is a phenomenon, too, where people will have less empathy for people of different races. And it's weird that he would brutalize and murder a 9-year-old girl.
I don't think he was that picky. He didn't have a age group. He didn't have a race. He didn't even...
But I'm saying that was his only victim that was a child, though.
I know.
That's weird.
I think he was just sort of random. I think he was kind of random. And they didn't initially connect this one to the rest of his murder spree. They didn't connect him to this one until like 2009 when DNA from that connected him. Anyway, so...
that wasn't part of the Night Stalker era. I guess that wasn't...
It was.
It was, but it wasn't...
But because it was kind of so different from the rest of them, it didn't get connected up at first. It was a kid. It was in the basement of a hotel.
Right.
So, and here was the other thing. Here was another reason why he was hard to catch. He didn't have a pattern. A lot of these guys, they do the exact same thing every time. It's almost ritualized. Mm-hmm. That's kind of part of what they're getting off on. And then that makes them easier to catch because it's a pattern. You can kind of figure it out. But, okay, so he kills a 9-year-old girl. A few months later, he kills a 79-year-old woman. This woman was found murdered in her apartment. She was stabbed repeatedly. Her throat was slashed, and he'd broken in through the screen window.
Crawled in through the fucking window.
Yep.
Well,
it makes you want to put bars in your windows, kind of, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Anyway.
Happy Devil's Night.
Oh, yeah. Happy Devil's Night. It's appropriate that we're talking about
Night Stalker.
Richard Ramirez, devil worshiper. He wasn't really a devil worshiper. I think he was saying that for shock value. I think for some reason he was under the impression that raping and murdering people by breaking into their homes wasn't terrifying enough. He needed to make himself seem even scarier. So he just started like pulling out things he thought would be scary, like dressing all in black and saying he worshipped the devil.
Worked for him.
It's like, dude, you know what? You could wear pastels. You would still be scary as fuck.
No. But he took a break after that. I mean, he wasn't like doing this every week, though, right?
No, it was random. He killed those two people in it was like spring and summer of 84. Then he didn't kill anybody else until the spring of 85. So it was almost a year later. This one, he attacks a 22-year-old woman outside of her house, shoots her in the face with a .22 as she's pulling into her garage. Okay? She survived, actually, because she held her hands up and she had her keys in them, and it ricocheted. So 22 is a pretty small gun, right? So inside the house, her roommate hears the gunshot, ducks behind a counter. Richard Ramirez walks into the kitchen. The roommate pops her head up to see who it is. He shoots her in the head and kills her.
No rape, though?
No, you're right. I'm proving myself wrong. I guess he didn't rape them. An hour later, he pulls a 30-year-old woman out of her car, shoots her twice with the .22, and flees.
So he's kind of working his way up. Yeah.
He kills her. 2 murders in a single day attracted a lot of attention from the news, who started making up nicknames for him immediately, including the Walk-In Killer and the Valley Intruder.
Okay, both of those sound like quasi-porn cowboy names.
I know, those are not good. They're not good.
I'm the Walk-In Killer with the Valley Intruder sounds like a great dildo name, actually.
Valley Intruder. Well, yeah.
The old Kid Rock song, Yodeling in the Valley.
Not too long after that, like a week later, a little over a week later, he goes into a home that he had already burglarized a year earlier.
Quite bold, Mr. Ramirez.
Terrifying. So you've already had your house burgled. This little piece of shit motherfucker climbs back into the window again. This time kills the guy in bed. The man, 64-year-old man, shoots him in the head. Then the wife, laying next to him, is awoken by her husband being shot. And Ramirez beats her, ties her up, demands to know where all the valuables are, and then starts ransacking the house and, robbing them, basically. Meanwhile, the woman escapes from he tied her hands up, I guess. She escapes, gets a shotgun from under the bed, which makes Richard Ramirez really mad. He shoots her 3 times with the .22, then gets a large knife from the kitchen. He stabbed her multiple times, gouged out her eyes, and put them in a jewelry box.
If you're going to gouge someone's eyes, you might as well put them in a box.
Ugh.
And he left. He left with the eyes.
He did. He took the eyes with him.
The eyes belong to me.
And he left something else behind, too, which would work against him later.
Footprint?
Yep.
All
Footprints from Avia sneakers. Remember those?
Not really.
If you look them up, they'll look familiar. Very 80s. So that was like the only evidence he left behind. God, I thought
lot of evidence.
I thought he raped all these people. Are my articles not graphic enough? I feel like he did. I think he did rape more of these people. He's just not saying.
He definitely, there was a few couples here.
I retract what I said earlier. His main hobby, I think, was just terrorizing people. Yeah. By whatever means he felt like doing.
He raped the next one, too. The next one was the older couple.
So, after this, and after this one, the police connect him up with those murders that were like a week earlier, and then they're like, we got a serial killer.
Right,
okay,
but
so you take the next one.
No, then a couple months later, in May of 85, he breaks into the Doy house, and he kills the husband, Bill, who's like in his late 60s, and his wife, who was already disabled, he just fucks her up. He beat her with a gun, he bound her, he put her into thumb cuffs, and then just raped the shit out of her. Why her husband was lying next to her dying after being bludgeoned in bed.
Jesus.
I mean, this is just pure evil. I mean, it's
he robbed them too.
Right. Well, he's got to feel the spree. So then, so it takes a little break for 2 weks. Then in late May, he breaks into an 83-year-old woman's house, who lived with her sister, took a hammer, bludgeoned and bound them, and again, he tied them up with cords and shocked them with an electric cord, raped them, and then he used a lipstick to draw a pentagram on their thighs as well as the wall of the bedrooms. Both of them were left alive but comatose, and one died of their injuries.
But they weren't found for days.
Right. I mean, so just, I'm giving you a very tame version of this, but like, these are women in their 80s who he ties up with an electric cord, breaks the cord, and shocks them with it, draws on their naked bodies pentagrams with their own lipstick, and just rapes and tortures them.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, he is a serial rapist and he is a serial killer, but what he really just likes to do is terrify people. Yeah. I mean, he's not a sexual sadist in the sense. He is a sexual sadist, but he's not like he's not Jeffrey Dahmer or Ed Kemper, who the sex was the thing. I don't think, and he's not, one that it wasn't like the killing was even the thing. I think it was just like the making people terrified and hurting them.
Right. Well, then
the
day after that, he breaks into a house, a single mother, Carol Kyle, ties her up, and she's her 11-year-old son, and ransacks the house. He then drags Kyle out and makes her show where the valuables are, rapes her repeatedly, telling her not to look at him or he'll cut her eyes out. But then he leaves them alive and relatively untortured.
Yeah. I mean, he is random as fuck. So far he's beaten, stabbed, shot, and bludgeoned with a hammer.
But see,
he's done like all these different things. Sometimes rapes him, sometimes doesn't. Sometimes kills him, sometimes doesn't.
Now I'm remembering here because I've read about him before too. It came up when they found the Asian girl, and the theory was he spared that 11-year-old boy because he found some sort of cultural association or affinity with him. It made him feel what he saw himself as the innocent child and didn't want to hurt him and barely hurt the mom.
I think that's pure speculation.
It is pure speculation.
I don't think
but
he had any empathy.
Okay, no empathy, but he killed a 9-year-old girl, tortured her in a basement. That was the first known victim. And then an 11-year-old boy who's a witness to a crime when he's on a murder spree, he lets live. Yeah. I'm saying those are...
No, you're right. It's weird.
There's a gap there in the...
So after this, he was done killing, right?
I don't think so.
Wrong.
He was
not done by a long shot. Okay, that was what, like May? Yeah, that was all in May. He had a busy month there. Then he took June off to rest up.
Americans should take a month off.
He went on holiday in June.
It's very European.
Yep. Then July 2nd, boom, as soon as July started, he's like, I got to get back in business. So he...
back to the grind.
He steals a car. Randomly selects a house. This is a 75-year-old woman. Goes into her, breaks into her house, finds her asleep in the bedroom, bludgeons her unconscious with a lamp. See, he's not even taking his own weapons in. He uses a lamp from her bedroom. He steals a knife from the kitchen. Just like the other people, he finds a hammer on their kitchen counter. I mean, he is random. I don't know. He's like a rage killer or what. He's not very organized. He's not a guy who's got a kill kit in his car.
You probably avoid it by putting like first aid kits where your knives and hammers are. That way, when he breaks into your house, he'll just managing guns.
Like a rubber knife.
Yeah.
No! Oh, Jesus. This poor woman, Mary Louise Cannon. He bludgeons her with a lamp, stabs her with a 10-inch butcher knife from her kitchen, and she's found dead
Inclusive she's raped, but when you're stabbing someone with a 10-inch knife, it's a violent crime at that point.
Yeah, I mean, then a few days later, he breaks into another home, bludgeons a 16-year-old with a tire iron. Then he starts looking for a knife in the kitchen, can't find one, so tries to strangle her with a telephone cord, but then sparks start to come out of the cord, and so he gets kind of thrown off of his game, and so she starts to breathe. So he flees the house because he thinks Jesus has intervened and saved her.
Maybe he did. Don't forget.
Right. Jesus. Well, why would Jesus save that girl and not save the 9-year-old girl? This is where religion falls apart for me.
I know. And guess how many stitches she had to have?
52.
478.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yes.
Wow! Only 2 days later, he burglarizes the home of a 61-year-old woman, finds her asleep on the couch, beats her to death with his fists, kicks her in the head, leaves another shoe print. Then he goes, I think later that day, finds another woman at home. This woman's 63, Sophie Dickman. He assaults her at gunpoint, attempts to rape her. I wonder what happened. Steals her jewelry. Then, when she swears to him that he has taken everything of value, he makes her swear to Satan.
Hail Satan!
He did that to a couple victims, I think. Made them swear to Satan just to fuck with them. Religious victims. It's like, again, he's just messing with people. What is the dog doing? He's driving me crazy. He's just tiptoeing around. I hope he's not showing anything.
Mike, talking to the
Okay. This was still, man, July was a very busy month for him. So, So like a week after that, he buys a machete, steals another car, drives to another random house, and breaks into it, bursts into the couple's bedroom, hacks them up with a machete, and then kills them by shooting them in the head, again with the .22. Then he mutilates their bodies after they're dead with the machete and robs the house. Okay, so I'm sorry. Correction. I feel like his crime here was he robbed people that was his most consistent thing, is he was robbing all these people.
He needed fuel. He was robbing people, taking stuff.
Yeah, he robbed them. I don't know what his... I thought he raped every single one of his victims, but no, he didn't. He robbed every single one of them.
And he was probably robbing houses people weren't there, too, but people were there. It's like bonus.
He probably robbed a lot of people... You're right, or burglarized a lot of houses where people weren't home, but it's just every once in a while he'd lose his shit and he...
It's like for him, he's a guy that loves the delicious oyster meat, but occasionally finds a pearl. And that pearl is an 80-year-old woman.
In the same day, he quickly sells the stolen items from that house, drives to another area, breaks into another home. The Covenant family
doesn't this make me go on a road trip?
Murders the man of the house by shooting him in the head, then rapes the wife, beats her, sodomizes her, binds the couple's 8-year-old son, and then drags the mom around the house to get all of the valuable items. Oh, yep, I was right. During the assault, he again makes her swear to Satan that she wasn't hiding any money from him. I feel like, did they give him like a look like, what? When he said that, like, really? Are you a 16-year-old boy? I mean, he really kind of was, I think, emotionally.
I think that would perfectly yeah, but you know what? That would still be terrifying. It
would be terrifying.
A 6-year-old boy, 6-year-old boys are terrifying in general.
It's true.
Yeah, no, you're telling me that, yeah. I mean, you'd be just as scared if they told you to swear to God if some person broke in your house and made you pray to Jehovah.
That's my point. He thought it was extra scary to make them swear to Satan.
It is extra scary to normal people. Satan's scary.
I don't think there's anything you can say at that point that would make it scary or less scary. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, it just shows that they're
it just shows he was thinking that was part of his image. So, God, he was really on a roll after that.
He was so hot.
Right after that, he was on a roll. He was like, there was no stopping him. So it almost gets like kind of monotonous. He drives to another house, another couple, goes into the bedroom, shoots the woman in the face, shoots the guy in the face, attempts to flee, but the man fights back and struggles, and Richard Ramirez escapes. That couple lived.
Was he called the Night Stalker at this point? Didn't he like take on? He like demanded to be called the Night Stalker too. It's like one of those things where, which by the way, I mean, as far as nicknames go for serial killers, that's the best one. I mean,
yeah,
BTK killer sucked.
I think sometime in.
No, I thought he told someone to call him the Night Stalker at some point.
Well, look it up. You look that up. So because at some point, yeah, there were a couple names that were being thrown around for him, and there was like another Night Stalker too. There were like a couple killers who were being called the Night Stalker.
He told the victim, Bill Carnes and Inez Erickson, to call him the Night Stalker. Yeah, and he forced her to swear she loved Satan. Yeah, bound, tied. Yeah, he was really.
Not to like belabor I don't want to blow over these victims because but I mean,
let's fast forward to getting caught.
Okay, so I mean, he goes up to another couple, kills the wife. Rapes kills the husband, rapes the wife, makes her swear to Satan, ties their 3-year-old up, rape, murder. Okay, so at that point,
thug life.
So he gets really kind of creative in the next one. He'd been following the media coverage of his crimes. He's in Los Angeles at this point, leaves the Los Angeles area, goes up to San Francisco. Okay, just to throw everybody off. Goes into the home of Peter and Barbara Pan. Peter Pan killed in his sleep with a gunshot to the temple.
You know what? I never liked Peter Pan.
Bless his heart. That's an unfortunate name.
And the sad thing
I'm not to make fun of victims.
No.
That's just, that name is...
Which is where the
name had to be hard to live down,
and the police kept going after Captain Hook for that one, too. They didn't look at any of her leads. They just had this preconceived idea.
Jeez. We're going to hell. Anyways, he was killed in his sleep with a gunshot wound to the temple, but his wife was beaten and sexually violated before being shot in the head and left for dead. Richard Ramirez takes lipstick, scrawls a pentagram on the wall, and also writes the phrase, Jack the Knife. I mean, do you know what I mean? He's like emotionally stunted. Like, Jack the Knife?
Yeah.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever... Okay, so then the police link this San Francisco murder up with the Los Angeles serial killer. So now they know it's the same guy. This gets leaked, in the news, which really pisses off the detectives because they know the killer is probably following media coverage, which he was. And what was also leaked was that they had the shoe prints. So after that, Richard Ramirez takes his shoes, which they'd had the shoe prints from, which had linked up the murders, drops them over the side of the Golden Gate Bridge.
It's kind of dramatic.
It was, wasn't it? Then he goes back to L.A. in another stolen car, arrives at the Romero home, and they had just returned from a vacation. The Romero's son, 13-year-old James Romero III, was awake, heard footsteps outside the house, thinks there's a prowler, goes to wake up his parents, and Richard had fled the scene. James raced outside and was able to note the color, make, and style of the car and part of the license plate number.
Hey, good kid.
Yeah. So they call the police, give them all this information, okay? After this, Richard Ramirez goes into a different house. This is Bill Carnes and his wife, or his fiancée, Inez Erickson. Goes in through a back door, shoots the man in the head, then turns to the woman, tells her he's the Night Stalker, makes her swear she loves Satan, beats her with his fists, binds her up with neckties, rapes and sodomizes, robs her of all her cash and jewelry, makes her swear to Satan again, and then before he leaves, he says, "Tell them the Night Stalker was here."
Do you think he would say it like Brian Fellows? Like, I'm the Night Stalker.
I'm the Night Stalker.
If there's a bird in
and
there.
she's like, I thought you were the hillside killer.
No.
The detectives are liars. I'm the Night Stalker. Anyways,
there's a bird
tell
in there.
him the Night Stalker was here, he said.
If there's a bird in there that heard him say that and started saying he was the Night Stalker.
Oh man, that bird is the liar.
That bird would be a big liar.
Anyway, the woman, Inez Erickson, unties herself, goes to the neighbor to get help. Her fiance lived. They both lived. She was able to give a detailed description to the police. And they got another footprint from the Romero house. So they find the stolen car. They find a fingerprint. But with the fingerprint, because, like, remember the kid had the description of the car. So that 13-year-old boy was the key that, like, brought him down. Because the kid described the car. The police find the car abandoned. He ditched the car. But they find a fingerprint. And, of course, Richard Ramirez had fingerprints on file because he was a drifter and he had a long rap sheet for a bunch of little petty-ish crimes and not-so-petty-ish crimes like drug violations, traffic violations, things like that. So they identify the prints in the car. They release a mugshot of Richard Ramirez on December 12th. From a December 12th photo. Sorry, from a December 12th, 1940 photo. And the Night Stalker, they start calling him the Night Stalker then. So at that point, he flees L.A., goes to Tucson to visit his brother.
Where was law enforcement in the 70s and 80s? Or the 80s, really?
I don't know.
I mean,
this is why Mindhunter is so interesting. It's like it's like the one hand didn't know what the other was doing. They were trying, but they just didn't have the technology, and everything wasn't all linked up. That was one big problem. Is like states weren't linked to other states very well. So if you committed a crime spree in one state and you went to another state, it sometimes took a while for them to catch up. So anyway, Richard Ramirez flees to Arizona, where his brother lived, and I guess he didn't really know that he was his picture was in the news at that point. So he goes back to L.A. and he's like walking past the police officers who were staking out the bus terminal. He's walking into a convenience store. He notices a group of elderly Mexican women fearfully identifying him as El Matador, or the killer, if you don't know Spanish. He starts seeing his face on the newspapers, and he just kind of starts running. He runs across the Santa Ana freeway. He tries to carjack a woman, but bystanders start chasing him. He hops fences, tries 2 more carjackings, and is eventually beaten by a group of residents who just started chasing him. A group of people they recognized him. They chased him down. They started beating him over the head with a metal bar. They held him down until the police arrived, and the police took him into custody. Now, is that fucking awesome or what?
That's amazing.
Like, you can just picture. Okay, so picture the scene. He goes into, like, a little bodega. These old Mexican women are like, "El matador, el matador." And he's like, looks around, sees his face on the newspaper, starts literally running away. And meanwhile, other people are like, what? What are they saying? And they look over and they're like, oh, shit, it's the Night Stalker. They start chasing him. They chase him down. They beat the shit out of him, and they hold him. And then the police get there and arrest him. I mean, that is a great story right there. Anyways, you can imagine his trial was quite irritating as he wore sunglasses in court and shouted "Hail Satan" and drew pentagrams on his palms and all kinds of dumb shit that he was, trying to be scary.
And fun trivia question: what famous song was inspired by Richard Ramirez? People always think it's "Night Prowler" by AC/DC.
No.
Nope. "Smooth Criminal." Michael Jackson pinned that. Based on the Richard Ramirez.
Who's Annie?
Annie is the doll that you give mouth to mouth to. What do you call it?
What does that have to do with Richard Ramirez?
They're two different things.
The CPR doll?
Yeah, the CPR doll is Annie. CPR, yeah.
Well, Michael Jackson is fucking crazy too.
Yep. As he came into the window, it was the sound of a crescendo. He came into her apartment. He left the bloodstains on the carpet. She ran underneath the table. He could see she was unable. So she ran into the bedroom. She was struck down. It was her doom.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then why is it Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie?
Yeah.
How do you know that's the CPR Annie?
I read an article about Smooth Criminal before the podcast.
Really? Michael Jackson.
So you came into the outway. It was Sunday. What a black day. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, sounding heartbeats, intimidation.
Huh. Well, all right. If you say so. I do love that song, but...
Okay, backstory. The lyrics of the seventh single from Michael Jackson's 87 hit Bad. There were 7 fucking singles from that song. Were inspired by...
album.
I had it. Inspired by both.
We all did.
They were inspired by the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, the serial killer who terrorized California in the mid-'80s, and Rasusi Annie, the doll widely used in CPR classes.
Yep. I have taken many CPR classes. Annie, are you okay? Is what potential EMTs have been taught to ask during the training. We've never were told to call her Annie. We're just say, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And then you have to start CPR. Annie, are you okay? Oh God, that's crazy. Do not play Michael Jackson. We will get sued if we ever get
fine.
Hey,
we're big in Japan.
Anyway.
All right.
So yada yada yada. He had groupies during his trial because women are there's always women who are kind of crazy and stalk serial killers and start writing them letters and wanting to have relationships with them. And Richard Ramirez actually did get married in prison. Mm-hmm. I mean, who the fuck wants to be romantically involved with a guy who clearly hated women and wanted to torture them and did torture them?
I don't know if he hated women. He just he hated not raping women.
He was not a happy man. He was an unhappy, angry man. I think it's safe to say.
I hope he finds his peace.
He was... No, you don't. I hope he burns in hell. Which I don't believe in, but, if there was a hell, there'd be a lot of people I hope would burn there. He was sentenced to death initially, but, California, and then they, undid the death penalty later. But he, do you know his famous quote?
Go on.
When he was convicted of the death penalty. And by the way, he was convicted of all charges. 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. So he was sentenced to die in the gas chamber. He told reporters, they asked him, how do you feel about the sentence? And he said, big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland. What a jackass he was.
Sounds like a certain group of dipshits from high school.
Doesn't it? Like, he sounds like the...
I mean, we can't name names, but I can name at least 3 or 4 people.
Don't get me wrong. I have a certain affinity for the guys with greasy black hair smoking cigarettes and listening to death metal. But on the other hand, some of those guys were assholes, and he was one of those guys. He wanted to be scary. He wanted to be tough. But then he took it too far by actually being really scary and terrible. It was a really expensive trial. It was the most expensive trial to date at the time. Of course, it was beat out later by the OJ case, but...
I mean, it's weird today, though. I mean, I want to... Let's kind of wrap this up in a little bit here, but, like, when you talk about avoiding things, like, in our neighborhood recently, somebody went and hit 2 vehicles and pulled the tires off of them. Because, but I talked to another friend. It's happened all over the county. So, but they're looking for Ford Explorers outside. And
I'm sure it was that guy that you knew.
Yeah, I'm sure it was too. Yeah,
God.
No, Whitney. It was Whitney. In both cases, here in our neighborhood, we had neighbors that had video cameras outside their house that caught cars going by. And I mean. Yeah. Everything's on tape right now. So I just it's hard.
What you're saying is it's a lot harder to be a serial killer who breaks into houses.
This kind of if this guy was doing things like, who
was our most recent? Well, I guess there was that. So Todd Colehep. I mean, if he hadn't been caught, he would have been quite the horrific.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, this kind of spree. You can do a spree like this without getting caught.
I was going to say, you just don't see as many serial killers anymore, which is good.
People on video. Now, stealing cars is smart because that way, at some point you get traced to your own.
I think he was very impulsive. He was not very organized. He had a lot of rage. He wasn't thinking these things through. He was lucky that he didn't get caught sooner. Yeah. So he, I like in one of my like true crime groups, someone was sharing like that they had like written him a letter in prison and he was writing back to them, and then a couple other people had letters that he'd written back to them from prison, and he was like just the kind of creep you would imagine, like writing things like "send me some pictures" and like, "Oh, what do you like?" Asking us like, "What are you like? What are your hobbies? What do you like to, do you have friends?" And then being like, "What kind of clothes do you like to wear?" And I was like, "Oh, what a fucking creep."
Sending pictures of your pussy, wasn't that the thing?
Yeah. Oh, send me pictures. But then he had some woman who actually started writing to him right after he was put in prison, and he proposed to her, and they were married. They eventually separated, but yeah. Oh, I guess California did not reverse that. He would have eventually been executed, but he just had so many appeals or whatever that he died of cancer before he could be.
Oh, he was on
executed.
Death row?
Yeah, he was on death row. I guess. Yeah.
Hey guys, we're not trying too hard to get the facts for tonight.
I'm sorry.
It'll be we want to get a show out. Without getting into the details, we had a very hectic October.
We have not done a lot of research on this, as you can probably tell. We're basing this mostly off of our sort of like just background knowledge of Richard Ramirez, and then like reading a couple articles real quickly, and then just talking about it.
We had some crazy personal family drama, and
or we just got really busy because it was the school year and everything, and
we have kids, we have jobs. Anyways, the goal here is to have 1 solid to 2 solid, well-researched episodes, and we actually have 2 that we're doing a lot of research on right now. But it's Halloween, we want to have some fun. That's why it keeps taking us
so long to record them.
Yeah, this one we're
getting hung up on the research part.
So forgive us, but we should end strong in November, get some time off, and we appreciate you listening and your support and all that shit. So I hope you enjoyed this raw footage. We will see you real soon, and I guess avoid murder, don't live in the fucking 80s. If you've made it this far, good job.
Yeah, the 80s was
You're dead.
A bad time for murder.
So when I put this together, how about you go through on Halloween, and we'll go to bed in half an hour.
All right.
Happy
Halloween.
Stay safe. Hail Satan. Thank you once again for listening to How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. If you're listening to this, that means you haven't been murdered, and we've done our job. Make sure you check us out on Facebook at How to Avoid Murder, or online on the World Wide Web at avoidmurder.com. And until next time, stay safe.